Hello, everybody, and welcome to yet another debrief session with me. Today, with me, I have Bhavya, who recently scored an impressive 695 with a V82, DI83, and a massive Q89, which is an impressive quant score, right? And today, Bhavya is here with us to share his GMAT journey, which has been a long one, starting from the classic edition, ending it with the focus edition, and with an impressive score, something that I'm sure he's really proud of, and we as EG Matters are also really proud of. Welcome to this session, Bhavya. Thank you so much for doing this. How are you doing?
Thanks very much, Dhruv, for that introduction. I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm good too. Thank you so much. Uh, Bhavya, I really appreciate that you took out some time to be on, this little podcast, this little session with me and share your GMAT journey. Because this has been a long journey, I'm sure there's a lot GMAT aspirants can take out from and learn from. So, to begin with your journey, just give me a bit about your background and why you thought of taking the GMAT and doing the MBA.
Okay, so to give you a bit about my background, I've done economics honors from Christ University, Bangalore, and for the past 2 years, I've been working in the financial services industry. And my dream school has always been ISB. So because of that, I've been giving GMAT and I've been preparing for like almost 2 years now.
Right, right. So you did improve by 100 points. Uh, I think you were starting with a Q47 and a V31, which translates to a V80 and a Q79. So you did improve your quant by a massive 10 points, right? And the verbal improvement was also very impressive, which is a V82, right? So let us dive into your journey now. Um, when you started with your journey, how did you then land up with e-GMAT? What was the process of looking for courses and then finally choosing e-GMAT over others?
So when I began my GMAT journey, I thought it's going to be just a 3 or 4 month long journey. I'll prepare using the official guides and I'll end up getting a great score. So that's the process I followed for like 4 or 5 months. I completed the verbal guide, I completed the quantitative guide, and I also ended up taking the advanced guide. But when I took up mocks, I realized that there was a lot of gap in the concept that they were trying to evaluate and what was actually being tested in the guides, because guides were set like a lot long back and they didn't really explain in detail the kind of thinking skills that we have to develop. So after going through a lot of reviews on GMAT Club and even after discussing with my friends who were preparing for GMAT, I got to know that e-GMAT has probably the best course on verbal. So that's where I decided to take the step and I signed up with e-GMAT. And I think, yeah, it's been a great step. The strategies that have been taught by e-GMAT, including pre-thinking, ABC test, negation test, I applied each and every one of them while I was attempting the paper. But yeah, I mean, like it happened. I was a bit of slow reader, because of which I had to leave the last three questions in my this attempt, and because of which my verbal score dropped a bit. But
Right,
out of the questions that I had attempted, I had almost a 95% accuracy over them. So yeah.
right. That's impressive. Uh, so let's start with the verbal journey, right?
Yeah.
Um, when you started with the verbal journey with a kind of a V31 from the classic edition kind of a score, what were the initial challenges that you were facing?
So the very first challenge was that I was a very slow reader. Like I have never been a reader of any kind of novels or any books throughout my life. I've hardly read two novels because they were compulsory in school in the curriculum, and that too very half-heartedly. So I was a very slow reader.
Merchant of Venice?
Sorry.
Was it Merchant of Venice?
Yeah, Merchant of Venice and one more in class 12.
Right,
Yeah. And I used to get really bored reading those novels. I mean,
right,
reading has never been my cup of tea.
right,
And so this was the first challenge. And secondly, whenever I went through any GMAT question and I saw the option choices, more or less every option choice seemed correct to me. So I was never able to eliminate like what's going on over there. And then thirdly, I struggled a lot with those main point and main purpose questions. I was never able to differentiate between the perspective of the author versus the third parties. So these were like the few challenges that I faced a lot in verbal. And same goes with critical reasoning also, because critical reasoning requires altogether different set of skills wherein you have to understand each and every line of reasoning being used by the argument. So yeah.
Right. Uh, so now that we're talking about critical reasoning and I've just understood the challenges that you were facing, uh, I'm sure that you already mentioned pre-thinking was something that helped you a lot.
Yeah.
I would really like to understand what exactly was this process of pre-thinking and how did that help you in addressing these challenges, especially the first two challenges that you mentioned, right? That help you further gradually and eventually improve your CR abilities.
Okay, so pre-thinking was very, very important for me, especially I would say in bold-faced questions. That is something that I always and always use in bold-faced questions. So what happens in pre-thinking is that once you're done with reading an entire argument and you know the question stem, whether it's a weaken or a strengthen or a bold-face or a conclusion question, before looking at the option choices, you think of the answer yourself beforehand. So that's what I did in bold phase. Whenever I was going through the argument and whenever I came through the first bold phase, I used to think of it whether it is a evidence or whether it is an opinion or whether it is an intermediate conclusion or a main conclusion. Same thing went with when I went through the second bold phase. And when I was done with reading the entire argument, I used to think of the main conclusion. So that was the first step. And the second step, I used to think of the directional relationship, like how are the directional relationships between the first two bold phase, between themselves, and with respect to the main conclusion. Now, this looks like a very long and sophisticated logical framework, but once you've practiced it enough, it hardly takes 10 seconds after you're done reading the argument. And once you're through with it, it really helps in eliminating the option choices very, very, very quickly.
Right,
And that helps you in choosing the right answer, and you can just move ahead with it.
right, right. That is nice. Uh, to show some evidence on your improvement on CR, here is data that shows that you, for a long time, you kept on struggling with CR, and then there came a time, probably when I think you were thorough with the pre-thinking process, that if you see was a steep rise in your score that consistently stayed almost uh, the same, right? And
Yes.
this looks like an 80th to 90th percentile ability by the time you ended your preparation for CR, right? Uh, so CR, I think, was pretty much sorted, but you repeatedly mentioned that you were a slow reader, not an avid reader. Uh, what was your strategy to tackle RC passages? Because you mentioned the third challenge as being, I think, main point,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Which I think is a very important factor in the RC section. So, what were your strategies to prepare for RC and overcome these challenges?
So, in my opinion, if someone has a good reading speed, reading comprehension should be like the easiest section for you. Because, I mean, let's be honest, this is the only section in which you have the answer right in front of you. It's there in the passage, right? So, the only way to tackle with RC questions is to know how to eliminate the wrong option choices. And this you can learn only when you've practiced like hundreds of RCs and you know what are the kinds of option traps that GMAT often throws at the students. So this I was able to develop by practicing lots of RCs in Scholaranium and doing all the cementing quizzes and the mocks. So each of the option choices that was set by your team, they were really based on the different kinds of traps. So there are a couple of traps. For example, the option choice shouldn't be having extreme words. It shouldn't be having some random modifiers or alien words that haven't been used by the passage. And a typical correlation versus causation kind of a thing. And specifically for the main point and the main purpose questions, it was very important to understand the structure of the reading comprehension. More often than not, when you read the first paragraph of the reading comprehension, you will realize that the author would have mentioned something or the other about how he's going to structure the entire passage between the different paragraphs. And even when you read the last paragraph, that's when he'll give a summation or some kind of conclusion to it. So more often than not, first and the last paragraphs is where I used to find the main purpose of the author. And again, last thing was understanding the tone of the passage. For instance, the author might have been talking positively about the impact of mobile phones in the first three paragraphs. But in the last paragraph, he ends up saying that, however, his opinion is that mobile phones are not good because of whatsoever reasons. Right. So in the first three paragraphs, he was telling about the opinions of the third party, let's say scientists or journalists. But in the end paragraph, he was talking about his perspective. So differentiating between the author's own perspective and the third party is very important for answering all these main point and main purpose questions.
Right, right. Uh, I'm sure with the kind of knowledge that you gathered and gained over the course of your journey, you actually deserved a better score on verbal, but I think it was probably the time management that actually costed you. And
Yeah.
on this test, not answering a question or leaving a question unanswered, I think incurs a very huge penalty.
Yes,
I think
yes.
right, and that is what I think costed you because you seem to be ready to score at least a V84 or a V85.
Yes. So that's precisely what happened. I ended up leaving the last three questions, and that caused me a huge penalty. Yeah.
Hmm. But the point is that you still ended up scoring a 695, which is again, which tells us whether even if one section does not completely go your way, you still have two sections and a few more chances to bring the game back to your grasp, right? And I think that's what you did with Quant and with Verbal. Uh, so Quant was a Q89, right? And if I have to show uh, everybody watching this video right now your cementing scores, they were again impressive. And uh, with whatever feedback I've received from a lot of students, e-GMAT, Scholaranium questions for Quant, they are challenging. And you were comfortably clearing the hard cementing thresholds in standard timing, right? So help me understand your initial challenges with Quant and what helped you overcome these challenges.
I think the first major challenge was that within the quant, we had both problem solving and data sufficiency. So we couldn't really perform with one particular pattern. Now, with the new focus edition, that challenge goes away by itself. And another major challenge was geometry for sure, which again gets sorted with the focus edition. Apart from that, I often feel that the actual examination, the algorithm that runs behind, it can test you on any variety and any iteration of the simplest of concepts. So, which is why I believe that sky is the limit for studying quant. For instance, for as simple a topic as time, speed, distance, in which we feel that there's only one formula, distance equals to speed into time, the exam can test you on various concepts such as linear races, circular races, escalators, boats and streams, so on and so forth. And it did happen with me in this 695 attempt also. It had a very tough question on circular races, which took me like 4.5 minutes to solve. And I
Mm,
started panicking like it's taking me so long for one question. But I realized that this is like the highest level of difficulty that probably GMAT can throw at me. And if I get this right,
mm.
it will take my score to a good level. So, keeping your nerves in place and not panicking because of a long question is also very important.
Right, right. Uh, what role do you think did the Scholaranium questions played in preparing you for the difficulty level that you would probably face on the test? Do you think there were some similarities in the difficulty level and the challenge that the questions posed on Scholaranium and the official GMAT?
Yeah, so see, there are a couple of things that happen in Scholaranium that can really help you prepare for the exam. First of all, you can choose a difficulty level of questions that you want to practice. Secondly, you can mix a wide variety of topics from algebra, arithmetic, modern math, number theory, so that you can end up facing like an exam type scenario where you'll be getting jumbled questions from each and every topic. And then lastly, if you are becoming prone to one particular error that most of the students are committing, So you can use the Scholaranium feature wherein you can see that what was the answer that you marked and how many students marked that answer. And then if you go at the bottom of each and every question, you'll be seeing lots of question and answers happening with the strategy experts on that question. So, using different kinds of techniques and strategies, wherein students also many times share different shortcuts to approach the same problem. That Q&A forum also helps a lot in building your strategies and saving time in the actual exam.
Right. I mean, you just mentioned a lot of nitty-gritties of the technology that e-GMAT uses to help students, and I think you leverage all of those because mentioning about those minute, little things about the technology and how those things help you is phenomenal. So I really appreciate that about you. Uh, so when you took the test, right,
Yeah.
and you scored a Q89, you got just one incorrect, was it?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know how that happened because I ended up finishing my quant section like 15 minutes before, and I
Oh,
started revising the entire section from the last question till the first question. And I reached around fifth question and I was left with four questions and the time ran out. And you can call it bad luck or whatever, my fourth question was wrong.
oh,
And apparently it was a very tough question that I got wrong because my score dipped from Q90 to just a Q89. Because more often than not, if you get
hmm.
one question wrong, it is Q87.
88 or 7, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was a very tough question that I got wrong because of which I didn't get much penalized.
Right, right. That makes sense. Uh, okay. So you just mentioned about the things that help you with quant. Uh, Let us come to DI. What were your initial thoughts when DI as a section was introduced, and what strategies or what approach did you take to get prepared for DI? And you just aced it with a DI 83. So take us through the DI journey.
So when data insight section came, I thought it's going to be a replica of the integrated reasoning section that we had in the older GMAT.
Yeah.
And I never faced time issues in the integrated reasoning section, but when I gave the official mock for this focus edition, data
Hmm.
insights was like a nightmare in terms of time management.
Right.
If you look at it, it has the least number of questions. It has only 20 questions to be attempted in 45 minutes. But in my opinion, it has the worst time management issue over there,
Yeah.
specifically because it has a mix of data sufficiency along with those data interpretation questions, along with multi-source reasoning.
Hmm.
And multi-source reasoning is something I feel that takes ends up taking a huge chunk of your time. And there's a strategy that I had built, which I seriously don't endorse, but I'll still share it with everyone. So multi-source reasoning is a set that comes as a fourth or fifth question. It's a set of three questions that begins from a fourth or fifth question in the section. And it's a very long, and if you get bad luck, it's going to be a very long and difficult set. So for me, it often ended up taking 8 to 9 minutes. So what I used to do was that I randomly marked those three questions and I moved on because I didn't want the time pressure. And I
Yeah.
thought when the section would end, I would come back and edit those three questions and do it with like a cool mind.
Yeah.
But that never happened with me, neither in the mocks, neither in the real exam. I never got time to come back. And
Right.
but the benefit of the strategy that I feel is that out of the remaining 17 questions, even if you can get around 15 or 16 correct, and let's say all three of multi-source reasoning go wrong and one of the other ones go wrong, still you'll end up making a 90 plus percentile.
Yeah.
And if luck favors you and if you get one of those multi-source reasoning correct, then definitely there's your score shoots up like anything.
Yeah. Right. Do you remember how many MSR questions you answered correctly?
Yeah, so I skipped all three of them and I got one correct.
Okay, that's nice. You still ended up with an 83, 96th or 7th percentile, I believe,
Yes,
uh,
96 there.
96th percentile. Right, that's impressive. Uh, any special way to prepare for DI? Any tips or suggestions?
So DI, I think, is a combination of both your reading comprehension abilities and your quant,
Yeah.
specifically because you will be getting really long caselets, which will be having lots of data, charts, theory, and evaluative concepts. So first of all, I think you should be doing a lot of speed reading. And secondly, in data sufficiency questions, there are a couple of tricks. You should not think mentally. Like you just read through the question and think that, okay, it's going to be a C answer, that both the options will be necessary for answering the question. So this, you should never fall for the C trap. In your pen and paper, you should always form equations, because what you may think mentally may not actually come out to be true.
Hmm.
And apart from that, you should always assume values in the data insight section. That will really help in cutting short the process and helping you get to the answer very fast. So yeah.
Right. That's nice. Uh, Let us now speak about the run into your test day. So, just a week before the test, what were you exactly doing and what were you kind of working on?
So like I registered for the exam just a week before and I planned to give three mocks in those 7 days. So I gave my first mock and I ended up with a 665 with a couple of blunders in the quant section, and my English section also went down. And I was really frustrated because they were literally very stupid mistakes in quant. So I was like, real exam mein to I'll make it fine.
Hmm.
And then I gave my second attempt. I got like a 655, even lower score.
Right.
Again, with a couple of blunders in quant. And then I gave my third attempt, which was again a 655. So I was like, my this attempt is gone and I have no hopes from it.
Hmm.
So for the last 3 days before the exam, I was like, I'm not going to make this attempt. I'll have to plan for another attempt 1 month later. So which is why I went to the exam with an absolutely no pressure. I had no
Hmm.
expectations from the exam.
Yeah.
And when I was writing the entire exam, I knew that even if I didn't make it, it doesn't matter to me. I'm either was planning a new attempt. So this mindset
Right.
wherein I didn't have any pressure, I felt really helped me nail the
Yeah.
exam. Because in my previous attempt, I panicked because of the pressure and I wasn't able to make it. So that this was a difference that really
Right.
helped this time.
Right. Right. So, if we have to speak about the test experience, the attempt where you were prepared and you were doing extremely well on marks, and you still went on to not do as well, right? I think you scored a what, 640 there,
Yeah, in November
right?
22, 640.
640. And from there, we're ending up with a 695 this time, right? Uh, can you explain what test day factors impacted those respective scores? Apart from, you just mentioned there was no pressure this time, there was a lot of pressure that time. Apart from that, was it something that you would like to advise GMAT aspirants to keep in mind when they take the test?
Yeah, so the first thing that I tell everyone is to do not take any kind of pressure. Be mentally prepared that you will be giving another attempt. Because GMAT as an exam, I feel, is based a lot on your luck as well, specifically because of the adaptive scoring
Yeah.
algorithm. And you never know, right? Like the question that you're getting right or wrong, what difficulty level is it? And one thing that I changed in this attempt was that even if I was losing on time, I made sure that I did not randomly mark any answer. Say, for
Okay.
instance, if the first 10 questions I'm done and I have, let's say, I have occupied 75% of the time, I'll still go ahead and do the remaining questions as much as possible with 100% accuracy. And the time left, I will randomly mark each and every question that is left, but I will not, from the very beginning, start
Yeah.
randomly marking answers, because I feel when you start randomly marking answers from the beginning and your accuracy goes down, the GMAT algorithm will drop your score so much that you'll never be able to bring it back.
Yeah.
So getting the first 8 to 10 questions correct is very, very, very imperative, even if you're losing out on time.
Yeah. That's interesting. Uh, let's speak about the sequence that you would have followed for the mocks and for the test. Which section did you start with and which did you follow second and then third?
So I was very clear that I'll begin with the verbal section because I cannot attempt it after DI or QA. That needs a very fresh mind to read so much and process so much of information. And after verbal, I attempted data interpretation. At the end, I attempted quantitative reasoning. And we get that 10-minute break, which I always took after the verbal reasoning section.
Okay. Was verbal always your strongest section or was it quant or DI?
No, my strongest has always been quant, and my weakest has always
Okay.
been verbal.
Okay, so you use a strategy where you get done with the weakest first and then you move on to the strongest.
Yeah, it was not about weakest being done first, but verbal as a section I feel requires the most amount of fresh mind and that
Mm.
attentiveness because there are lots of information to process in those 45 minutes.
Yeah,
Whereas in quant section, the question is hardly of like one line or two liners. So you can do it with a tired mindset also.
right, right. Thank you so much for sharing a lot of details about your entire journey, even the test day factors, and some really wonderful advice that you just shared. Uh, so, what next for you? Are you starting with the applications?
Yes, I'll be applying to ISB in round one this year. And I've already started preparing for the essays and everything and hope to make it this time to ISB.
Yeah, I think you should be able to do it this time, especially with a very good GMAT score. I think that should give a lot of weightage to your application. So, I just hope and wish that you get through this time. Do let us know once you get through so that we can also congratulate you and again be a part of the success. It was a pleasure talking with you, Bhavya. It was a pleasure to have been a part of your journey as in GMAT, and we're really proud of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dhruv, and thanks a lot to Payal, Rajat, and the entire GMAT team for creating such a beautiful content, such a structured course, and very close mocks to the actual examination. So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.